barriers, they're supporting their communities, there might have been language barriers. But the other one should know better because they've been around for 65 years. So it's kind of hard to really navigate unless we dig in again. So there is something interesting about sort of this lower threshold of that 5,000 range and kind of ranging these out. Because dropping off the last two just doesn't make sense to me either, even the last 6, like under 70. Because I think everyone can kind of learn from this, but that's my positive perspective on just accessibility and learning and breaking into this kind of world and leveraging that funding, hopefully for more.
Katie?
You have something?
Yes, the thing I was thinking about is that this grant only opens every 3 years, right? So if a group were not funded and it was like, well, you know, next time, it might not be around next time. And the staff might be totally different, or the volunteers who are writing the application might be totally different. And so I would, there's not as many opportunities to come back and apply and to keep building those skills. And so I don't really want to see us drop anyone off of the funding list because of that. And then you said there's this second pot of money.
Yeah, so we were, so yes, and I did create a simple thing, but I don't want to take down the scores right now, but I'm happy to share. So the pool of dollars that we have for this program is 950,000. There was a supplemental pool within that. So the first 450,000 came, it's the usual amount. We were able to advocate and get additional funding specifically for this when we did the budget, before we knew that there was opportunity for American Rescue Plan Act support as well. And that's also something to acknowledge here. Those folks that are being funded through this will also have access to those recovery dollars when that program becomes available in an easier process, because they've already been through this review. So what we're looking at is if we used that 450,000 as our base, right? Like the ones that we say, these are the ones that we want to invest in as a part of the pool. And then the dollars that we have above that, which is 500,000, what we were thinking is that we did in the guidelines say, because we were still trying to figure out how to make sure that the score, really mattered, because people put in a lot of time. You did in terms of scoring them all, and they did in terms of completing the application. So the idea was that the top performing organizations would have access to an extra pool. So within this, what could happen based on this conversation is that you would say, you know what, we've made the decision based on all of the comments that you just shared that we're not going to make a cut based on this first one. So everybody who, is going to receive the base grant, right? And it's somewhere between here and here based on scale of the organization. And then your next answer is to say there's essentially going to be another $400,000 pool to work with. And so when you're thinking about that, then you're thinking about what is the cut to be within that case, right? So your 50th percentile, just so you know, is right here at this, if I calculated it correctly, is 79.875. So that's like a starting point for conversation, like 50, you've got, that if you pursued that approach, you could say, okay, we've got the base grant, right? Somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000, we've hit that crowd, whatnot. Then above that, to get access to additional dollars using that same formula, what's the score cut there in terms of who you want to really make investments in, who are doing the work and all of that. So is that helpful, or is it clear as mud at 6 o'clock on Eastern time? 7, almost 7.
7 for some of them.
I've lost it, Christina. I've forgotten now.
Deontay is in New Jersey, so he has to get extra props.
So if I restate that, we could give everyone something from the base pool, and then say of the sort of bonus pool, here's where we want to fund. And maybe that might be a place where some of those lower scoring organizations don't receive something from the extra pool.
Mhm.
That's correct. Michael,
I
your-
like that. I would lean that way.
Yep, Michael, your hand's up too. Oh, or not?
And I think Anu had something to say.
Yeah,
It's
I was just going to say, is there any, to Julius's earlier point, and if we were going to give all of these groups something from the first chunk of money, is there some way to say, like, let's say for the groups that scored below 70, so, really kind of hone in on those 6. Is there some way, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do is add to yours or Melissa's workload, but is there some way to say, hey, you were among these lower scoring groups, and so we would like to meet with you once or twice during the grant period to kind of review these things with you and to make sure that you're stewarding this money well, or something like that. I mean, I don't know if that's, and you wouldn't single them out, like you wouldn't tell everybody that they were doing that, but to say, we want to encourage you, but you have to understand that, like, your scores were on the low side, and the panel said they wanted to encourage you, but also felt that you needed some, or could you require them to go to Impact Foundry and do a certain thing or something like that, that would kind of help them address the reasons that they got lower scores?
I think, and Melissa, I don't want to speak out of turn.
Really?
I don't know. I never do anything without you.
You?
I know, but I do think, I think that it is important, and it's well noted that we do care about equity here. Like, this is a top priority. You can see it in the rubric. It is something that we care about, and we want to make sure that people are supported to do the best job that they can, not only just in receiving funding from us, but quite frankly, in securing funding from others. Like, that's just what sort of helps us. So I do think that there are some opportunities. I think as a recommendation, you could say we could go to that pool and work with them and how to support them and bring them along and take through the feedback and go from there. Absolutely. And I don't think that's out of order. And I think that's certainly within our capabilities to be able to provide that support.
Especially if it was just those 6 groups, I mean, it's not like I'm saying take the lower 50% or something like that. It's like, it's just those, clearly those ones, there were, more serious questions. And so I think it's, for all of us.
So I don't want to belabor things, but I also want to offer to you, Melissa and Megan, I would love for us to work in partnership to kind of further discuss the opportunity to create some capacity building, et cetera, so that we can also think about inclusion and et cetera. On that space, I think Impact Foundry is wonderful, but I would love for us to think about other organizations that provide resources as well, and I think Impact Foundry would be a great lead, because in other efforts that I have kind of facilitated RFP opportunities, some of the financial institutions in the region were able to do exactly what we're talking about and have Impact Foundry lead it and create more impact for these organizations to learn how to better apply for grants, improve their board situation, focus on DEI, et cetera. So let's partner. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I like this guy. This is what I'm talking about. That is awesome.
No, that's okay. So it sounds like then where the panel is, and if you have an alternate viewpoint, feel free to share it. But it sounds like where you are right now is, yes, like we do want everybody to be able to benefit from the base grant, right? And then the ones that you've identified that are within that lower grade, it sounded like below 70, to really target in on additional supports that can be provided them and resources as they're doing this work. Yes.
Yes, and
yes,
and I would like us to, like, when we meet, I would like us to maybe explore providing the opportunity for capacity building, et cetera, to even other organizations that even scored higher than 70 might benefit from taking advantage of some capacity building and et cetera.
Absolutely. I think that's totally doable. And in fact, you're gonna hold it because I want to keep us kind of focused in this, but I do think that we have 12 hours of your time and all of your comments in the thing that we can actually use to mine and establish what most significant areas of priority for capacity building for the field are, so that we can be doing that programming work in partnership with our colleagues who are doing this work around the city. Julius, you know, like we don't necessarily need to do that alone. There are other people and assets that we can rely on and that we think that's important. So that's a no-brainer. Yes, let's do that. Okay. So the yes and to that. So then the next question before you is this: when you're thinking about sharing in, let's call it a performance pool, right? So we know that we've stated that the top 10%. So Diana, can you scroll up? So we know that there's a pool at the top 10%, which is, I think, since the applicant pool, 7 organizations would share. Right, they would share within an extra pool of dollars. Between there's $400,000. So the question for you guys is, where would where is a natural point in terms of who would be included in a performance pool that would benefit from that additional $400,000? So that is the question before you. The 50th percentile, if you scroll down one more time, Diana, is at that 79.875. It's sort of like 50% of all scores are below that. So not that I'm suggesting that is the cutoff point. I'm just suggesting it as a reference point for you all to understand. So given your reviews, what do you think? Any initial thoughts?
The 400,000 is a calculation based on budget size.
That's what we would do. So we would apply the same sort of approach as we did with the base grants, except you would be dealing with a smaller pool. And so it would take into consideration, we're taking into consideration score as the cut level and scale as a part of their revenues. And then still the objective is meaningful award at each level, meaningful award.
And just one more time, the top 10%, you said, so that's the top 7, basically.
Yeah. That will be the extra.
Would get an additional thing on top of that.
100,000, yeah, to share. Christina, yeah.
Is there an easy way to run the formula right now on the top scoring applicant, just so we can understand if we were to use like the formulas we just discussed, what size award they would get?
We could do that. I would have to take, okay. So a lot of it depends on the pool, as you know. So we have 400,000 in whoever's in it. So there's like kind of playing with that. What we could do, which we don't have to necessarily decide right now, if you don't want to do it, because again, it's late. If there's a general thinking, what we could do is take our time, run those numbers for you and say, in theory, this is what it would look like, and then send that all out to you after the fact and give you an opportunity to kind of weigh in on what you're seeing before that goes. That's also an option here to give us the time to make sure the numbers are accurate, that we have it in and say, okay, if the cut was here, this is what this would mean. Is that helpful? Rather than you feeling like.
Is there a min max in this 400,000? Like you would get no less than X based on budget size and no more than X based on budget size if you're in that kind of upper group?
We didn't establish that, but we could look at it. I think it would be helpful for you all to see it, but it would also just to give us time and not run that on the fly. This is like, this stuff really matters. I really like to make sure you have an opportunity to just kind of see and study it, if that's okay. I'm happy to do it. I'm just thinking like right now might not be the best time at the end of the day after you guys have had 6 hours of work.
Yeah, I think, you've mentioned the phrase meaningful award a couple of times, which I really agree with. And I wonder if our thinking might change about, like, once we see the total amount for the top scorer, is it really meaningful based on their budget size? And does that mean we might actually want to institute a threshold on the base amount?
Okay. That's helpful. So a couple of options here. We can based on these scores, we can, why don't we do this? Just for, again, not for saying that this is what this, like a scoring threshold should be into that other pool, but why don't we work from the kind of 79.5 level, so you can kind of see and then know like above or below to mess with, then we can run the numbers, run the formula so you can see it and see what the basic grant amount would look like, what the additional amount would look like, and what that would be for top scoring applicants. Would that help? If we can do that, we would need to take some time to do it. I'm wondering, we'd probably need a little bit of a break here to be able to do it. So I'm sensitive to what you want to do. Would you rather have us go ahead and plan for that, share it back out with you and give you an opportunity to provide your feedback post today? We have some time. So what do you think?
I will just say what my learning style is and like my decision-making process. I need to see numbers. I prefer making data-driven decisions, and this just feels too important to say, I've got a feeling that this number is a good threshold. I'd just rather see the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
I think
would
it
be-
makes sense for us to run them and provide them to you and let you think about them for a bit.
So then what would the process then be? If you could outline that. Yeah.
So we could do that. I'd welcome the opportunity to be able to like make sure we've got it, know with it, that everything's going in there and is correct before we send it to you, do it. We could do a follow-up conversation if you want. I'm sensitive to how much time you've already contributed so far, so I wouldn't ask that lightly. So we could make time for that where you could actually see it. We could send you the stuff in advance and there'd be an opportunity to, to kind of study. There could be a couple of scenarios. Alternately, we could send you those scenarios and just get your feedback relative to that via email one-on-one with Melissa.
And then how would a decision come to pass if we are not meeting again? Or would it be that you'd be gathering feedback from all of us, and if there was enough consensus, you would kind of share back out, here's the synthesis of everybody's feedback, so here's what we agreed on, here's places where people had a few nuance or ideas, and then kind of see if over that way we would get some kind of consensus? Or
That's correct. We could do it that way.
I'm wondering, I hate to add more time to everyone's schedule, but I'm wondering if there's a possibility for us to meet again like this. I think it's a lot of value in hearing people's perspective and reasoning on the decisions that may be made in regards to, I think we should cut off here, and maybe a new thinks we should do something different. And once I hear a new reason, and I might absolutely agree. So I'm
We could
wondering if
certainly
that's possible.
try that. We could try to schedule something and probably schedule an hour at some point in time if you feel there's value in getting together after you've had a chance to look at it, to get together as a group in a meeting. We could try to do that. Is there agreement that would be preferred, or?
For me, it would. I have put in a lot more time on this than I expected to put in, but now we're at the point where it really matters to the organizations. And so I would want to put in that extra time, because if I were being funded, I would want the panel to want to do that too, I think, having been in the applicant side many, many times. But
that seems totally reasonable. And I think what we could do if we can't, because we know we're on a timeline, if we can't get consensus with everyone, we can also provide a vehicle to provide feedback in the event we can't get the full group given calendars. Okay, that sounds like the plan then. We'll take this and we'll put some so that you can see it, give you an opportunity to provide feedback and know where the latitude is, and we can go from there. Michael, you unmuted.
Could we see, so what I guess I have no problem meeting again. So that's, just let me start there. But I also want to be clear that, like when we come back, let's just make sure that we have all the information we need so that then we're not asking you guys to run yet another scenario and then have to meet another time. So I think, it would be really useful to, like if we see their score, their budget size, and what the proposed, what's their budget, or the budget, like, it doesn't have to be the exact budget, but it's just the budget category. And let's make sure that we don't take those gross income numbers off of the grant applications, because too many applicants misreported their numbers. Like we have to know what their operating budget is for the year. And then what would be the proposed, based on if you went with the top 50% and then the top 10%, what would be their proposed grants out of your big chunk of money?
What we can do is set it up so that there's what would be the base, what would be the thing over the ad over a certain threshold, what would be the top 7, so that you can see how that adds, what that total percentage of budget looks like, et cetera. So you can see those numbers, and then we have it and we know how to play with it. That's
you're already doing a lot of work on our behalf, because we're, and so I don't want to add another one, so that's, I just don't want us to do it a second time. That's all.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But quite frankly, to Katie's point, you all have invested a lot of time, as have they. And it's really important for us to be transparent in the process, produce meaningful awards.
So like I said, I have no problem meeting. I want to give us the best possible chance of nipping this in one shot if we can when we come back, and not trying to run a variety of scenarios. Or if we want a second scenario, let's define that now, so you can show us the difference between two scenarios. Like, is it the top 50% who take part in the next group, and then is it the top 33% who take part in the next group, or something, so that it gives us those comparison points? Because otherwise we'll just keep, I worry we'll keep wondering.
So I think maybe we should try to run a couple, Megan, at least.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's, I think the 50th percentile probably is a good, we want to at least be there, and then maybe go one quartile up and one quartile down. Maybe makes sense. And that way you can see for that $400,000 pool, and then you can see from there. And if that's useful, maybe quartile might be too far, maybe it's 10% or whatnot, but we'll have 3. How's that sound?
Budget wonk me will love it. So, I'm fine with that. So.
Okay, so this is all really good conversation. So we will plan for that. So timing. So one last question for you. Do you want to hold on the policy conversation until that meeting, if we're going to go ahead and have it, since you're all put in a lot and you're tired? Or do you want to just have some preliminary discussion now? Because I basically have 2 questions for you. We have started to institute rubrics. I don't think rubrics are going away, because I think they're important for us to be transparent. At the same time, I think our early rubrics may evolve, based on feedback. Are we doing the right things? So there's certain criteria, whatnot. That's going to be one sort of side of this. And then also the application, which is where we've received a lot of the feedback from the community. Is, what we said with the intent was to, we were trying to say, here's a rubric, here's the information that will evidence this for the panel, so that it wasn't so much about writing. The end result, as much as we intended it for it not to be, is that there was a lot of writing, and a lot of writing that you all had to review. So I'm sensitive to where we're at in the day. If you want, we can just include both of those conversations in our next meeting. And then that way you have some time to think about it, and we can prompt, when we send you the data, we can send you those questions too. Sound good? Okay.
Are you can you, when we get off, or in the next 2 days, just recap hey, this is what we're going to do, and send you, just to recap what you just said.
Definitely.
Thank you.
That's how we know we're really tired, is when we have to recap what we just said. Yes, definitely. So I'll get you a doodle poll to figure out what dates and times are good for everybody, and try to be cognizant of folks on the East Coast and everywhere else. And also a recap of the kinds of things that we want you to remember. And we'll do that really soon, probably tomorrow. I'll send you a recap just so you know what you have to think about before it all disappears from your
And
head.
I do think we do want to be sensitive to just timing of when that meeting happens, because our next commission meeting is scheduled for March 14th, I think.
Yeah.
And we have a 9-day window by which we have to send information to them for review and all of that. So I think it's important that we make sure that that is happening sooner rather than later, so that we can get that done and get the recommendations over to the county as well. So it's probably going to be tight.
Wait, sorry, with this 9-day window, does that mean this meeting needs to take place next week, essentially?
I think probably my preference, if we can find time for an hour next week, that would be great, or early the following week.
Could I mean, maybe this is nuts to say, but I'm around Monday. I'm just saying, yeah, or maybe we just do it as a doodle poll, but I'm happy to meet. Be good to figure that
So
out.
I'll look at the calendar just to make sure, because we have to submit staff reports in terms of the timing, and I can let you know, and that way we can see. And we'll try to provide as much flexibility as possible to ensure that we can get it done. Sound good? Okay. So that's the work on our end. Melissa, I think this is back to you now to just wrap us up so that people can perhaps have wine.
If you all want to go back to your lives, I just gonna say that one big thank you again. And thanks for staying with the process. Thanks for caring so much about what the end results are gonna be. I love the fact that you really care to figure out who's gonna get the grant and how much people are gonna get, and that you care enough to try to include as many applicants as possible. I think that really showed up in these last 2 days. I want to give a shout out to Diana, who is doing all the heavy lifting, and you only see her in that like adorable picture of her and her beret and her cape, but she's been doing a huge amount of work. And so I want to thank her also, and Megan for walking us through these formulas and process. It's been really helpful. So thank you again. And it was great to get to know you all. It was really fun. We'll be asking you all back again at some point in time. And for all those who could attend and who are still here at the end of the day, thanks for sticking with us and watching this process. So
This has been a great group to work with, and I like to propose that we all meet at Mama's Making Bacon when it.
I do. I want to.
Again, my standing invitation, you are all coming to Sacramento and you get to see all these great organizations. So thanks. And be seeing you soon, maybe next week. So thank you.
I just want to quickly say thank you too. I feel super privileged to have been a part of this process with all of you. I mean, your perspectives and your everything. I mean, it's been really great, and I've learned so much from all of you. So I appreciate it.
Likewise.
Same.
Okay. Good
Absolutely.
night, everybody.
Good to see you all again
Good
soon.
night, everybody.
Bye.